Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and a few days ago, we celebrated National Power Rangers Day. I for one enjoyed the holiday, especially with the creative ways those part of or close to the franchise shared their experiences, and all of it was capped off by Dimensions in Danger, an episode fighting for the distinct honor of being better than this. Does it succeed after a strong build-up without Fox? Well, let's discuss. The episode starts off focusing on Tommy Oliver, something they'll do a lot in 22 minutes. And he's got a son, likely by way of Cap, which is a pretty cool detail. It's minor, but it's nice to know that veteran Rangers are leading real lives after the fact. We really don't see the personal side of team-ups or cameos very often, so this was welcome, even if it was short-lived. And let me tell you, short-lived can honestly define a lot of what we got here, as I'll get plenty into. So, the Ranger Tribunal returned to the land of Ninja Steel to inform them that Rangers are getting scooped up left and right. I really liked this moment because I love all three Rangers present here, but I also don't like it because of what it implies. This team, apparently, knew all about Ranger teams from the past through Mick, a role all too fitting for Kelson Henderson, who has been in many seasons. The problem is, we never even once see that, so why are they shoehorning it in now? And if they were learning about past Ranger teams, wouldn't that have made for a more interesting plotline than, oh I don't know, literally anything else Ninja Steel has been doing? Call it nitpicking, but I much rather seasons work towards that level of recognition. Or, if not, do what your fellow ninjas did and just make not knowing part of the humor. But at least there's consistency with Koda and Gemma being from different dimensions, so credit where credit is due. So, the group makes their way to Reefside to find a villain we've never seen before, being assisted by none other than Lord Drakon. I mean, not really, but Lord Almighty. Was it just me, or did this episode really want to be Shattered Grid so freaking bad? To the point where even Draven, the main enemy here, has a name that sounds similar, and even uses the same weapon as Hunger Games Kimberly, a fairly important part of that comic arc. So the Rangers make their way to Draven's lair, but quickly find themselves surrounded, and I do mean quickly, because the pacing here would make Quicksilver blush. But in the nick of time, the real Tommy Oliver returns as the Black Dino Ranger. It's nice to see that they kept his invisibility thing, but going really fast was Connor's thing, so anyways, the grid, the dimension gets shattered, and it's time to go into mission mode. I will say that they did step up the Ninja Steel fight choreography in this one. It's some of the best we've gotten this season, if not the best. And now, even more of the best choreography we've gotten this season, brought to you by the Master Morpher. I know it's just a blatant copy of what Super Mega Force did with the Ranger Keys, but I would argue that this is a better version of that, even if it is just a Tommy thing. Honestly, I don't really have much of an argument beyond that. I just really like the thing. So, our resident ninjas steal the arrows, but not for long, and now they're staring down an army of Ranger fakes. But we already know what time it is. Time to completely skip the morphing sequences of all the past Rangers. Yep, that's what time it is. Gotta cry foul on that one, even Overdrive got that right. This fight is a little problematic too, since with so much movement, it's hard to see the Ranger Army's shoulder pads, and as a result, harder to make out what's going on unless you really concentrate, and even then, sometimes it takes a second to register. But the highlight of this episode had to be the return of the Falcon Zord, not just because it's among my favorite Zords, but because it really did come out of nowhere as one of those shock fan service moments. But unlike Cole and his flying bike somehow taking out the strongest evil Zord ever, this actually made more sense. So, what's the final verdict? Better than this, but not as good as this or this, for a variety of reasons. Let's start with the easy issue first, the pacing. This episode was pretty enjoyable, but even the dialogue delivery felt forcibly rushed, to say nothing of the plot itself. And not setting up Draven as an odious contemporary before now is an easy red flag. Especially since this was a follow-up to Outfoxed, so they easily could have. A two-part episode fixes almost every problem this episode had, so all I wonder now is whose bright idea was it to cling desperately onto that 23-minute hard cap? At worst, make it an extended episode, or, do what you did before and make it a whole quote-unquote movie. If it costs more, spend more. The franchise is worth a lot more now than when Samurai happened, as our current overlords can attest to, and more to the point, you only turn 25 once, why not go all out? Also, they might never ever get another chance to have two real-life brothers share the Ranger stage, and they did nothing with it. They didn't even fight together as the two Gold Rangers did. That to me was more egregious than even the pacing, but that also speaks to the larger problem this episode shares with Forever Red. In both cases, there's not a lot of attention paid to character dynamics because there's simply no time. Although, they did find a way to squeeze in a tiny but cool character point about Cole eventually earning Jason's respect. Conversely, this episode couldn't even take 2 seconds away from the action to have Kat simply ask if JJ was alright. Honestly, I'd like to know. His dad and his probably mom were both kidnapped, so what's his status right now? But the main reason Forever Red works so much better, beyond the godlike work done by whoever handles guest spots, is because that plot was framed as a continuation. Assuming you know who King Mondo is and what Serpentera is, it's that much easier to follow along with a plotline of Ranger Legends versus bootleg Beetleborgs. Without as much to establish, the pacing isn't as much of an issue. Nobody knows who Draven is, yet the episode races on ahead while we're still trying to keep up. The interesting thing about this episode and the Outfox lead-up though, is how they made Ninja Steel itself look, which is to say, unlike Once a Ranger, the current team is never made to look worse. In fact, they acquit themselves very well for what they're given, so points for that. All in all, despite the myriad of issues, I can't call this a bad episode by any means. Sure, we all wish it were better, but we can say that about most Ranger episodes, even the very best ones. As an analyst, there was a ton left on the table here, but as a fan, I enjoyed myself both times I watched this one. So perhaps not a solid episode, but solid-ish, I'd say. I have no idea how the timing works out with when they filmed this versus when they thought up the Shattered Grid storyline, but my ultimate fanboy prayer is that this isn't a coincidence. Tommy has the Master Morpher now, perhaps making it possible to combine Tiger and Dragon powers, and he also has a lot to lose these days. Powerful motivator. So they could, in theory, run an original version of that storyline, even as just a separate special. Well, that, or more likely, this whole episode ends up being the biggest tease/coincidence in Ranger history. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, read the Boom Studios Ranger comics. You can thank me later. And those are most of my thoughts. Well worth the watch, but neither exceptional nor lacking in problem areas, as with all anniversary episodes. Also worth noting is that I probably won't keep reviewing Ninja Steel episode by episode. Unless any of the upcoming episodes absolutely demand a deeper discussion, as these last two did, I'll be saving everything else for the full-scale Super Ninja Steel review at season's end. And until then, thanks for watching.